Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be tackling a pretty huge issue, one that's often misunderstood and pretty complex, poverty.
Yeah.
But we're going to try and, cut through all the noise and really understand the systemic issues that contribute to it. We really want to look beyond those kind of surface-level explanations and get to the heart of what keeps people trapped in this cycle.
Exactly.
So is it really just about bad financial choices, or is there something much bigger at play here?
Oh, it's definitely a much bigger story. And, one place we can start is with something we all kind of experience.
Yeah.
Maybe haven't thought about it in this context, but the shrinking value of the dollar.
Right.
Think about this.
Okay.
$100 today has the same buying power as just $14 back in 1970.
Wow.
So that cool gadget you wanted as a kid for $20 would cost you over $140 today.
Oh, wow.
So that's inflation at work.
Yeah.
And it hits those living in poverty the hardest.
Yeah. That's a crazy thought. $100 really doesn't go nearly as far as it used to. And you can't just work harder to make up for that kind of gap.
Right.
Especially when the minimum wage hasn't kept up with the cost of living at all.
Absolutely.
I'm sure a lot of people listening know someone working a minimum wage job or have worked one themselves.
Yeah.
But what does that really mean in terms of actual buying power?
Well, the federal minimum wage has barely budged since the 1970s. Now, if it had kept pace with worker productivity, it would be over $18 an hour today.
Why?
Not the current $7.25.
Right.
So you see, the problem, wages are stagnant, costs are skyrocketing, and it creates this impossible situation for so many people. We can't just blame individuals for, not working hard enough. This is a systemic issue. It requires systemic solutions.
That's a really good point. That pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality really starts to fall apart when you see the numbers laid out like that.
Yeah.
And wages are just one piece of the puzzle, right?
Right.
We also need to look at these other barriers that exist, the ones that go beyond personal finances. What else is going on?
Exactly. Let's take access to grocery stores, for example.
Okay.
You might be surprised to learn that a lot of low-income neighborhoods lack access to full-service grocery stores
Okay.
with fresh produce and affordable prices.
Right.
So this forces residents to rely on convenience stores or smaller markets where the prices are often much higher, especially for healthy foods. So you're not only dealing with a limited income, but now you're paying a premium for the essentials.
Right.
And that impacts your health in the long run.
So you're already struggling financially, and now you're facing potentially higher healthcare costs because of this limited access to nutritious food.
Exactly.
It creates this vicious cycle that can be really hard to break free from.
It does.
It's like being stuck on a financial treadmill, constantly running but going nowhere.
That's a great analogy.
And it's not just food deserts. Think about transportation. Getting to those more affordable grocery stores that are further away can be a logistical nightmare if you don't have reliable transportation.
It's true.
And let's be honest, owning a car is often a luxury for those living in poverty.
Absolutely.
So this is really starting to paint a clear picture of how these challenges are so interconnected.
They are.
The lack of affordable housing, the lack of transportation, limited access to healthy food, it all compounds.
Yeah.
It makes it so incredibly difficult to escape poverty. And we really need to remember that this isn't just a problem for the individuals experiencing it. It has these ripple effects throughout our society as a whole.
Absolutely. Generational poverty impacts us all.
Right.
So when a significant portion of the population is struggling, it affects economic growth, it increases crime rates, and limits access to quality education and healthcare.
For entire communities.
Yes.
It really underscores the need to shift our thinking away from placing blame on individuals and start recognizing these larger systemic problems.
Absolutely.
And I know there's a lot of talk about financial literacy as the solution, but can you really budget your way out of poverty when the system is working against you?
Financial literacy is important.
Right.
But it's not the magic bullet.
Yeah.
Let me be very clear. You cannot budget your way out of poverty.
Right.
We need to address those root causes, the systemic inequalities baked into the system, if we really want to see change.
Yeah.
It's not a quick fix, it's a long-term solution.
Okay, so we've laid out a lot of pretty sobering realities about how deeply embedded these problems of poverty are in our society.
Yeah.
But I don't want to leave our listeners feeling overwhelmed or helpless.
Right.
There are things we can do,
Absolutely.
both individually and collectively,
Yeah.
to make a difference.
Oh, sure.
So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about solutions.
Okay.
What are some real-world examples of how people are really pushing back against these systemic issues and creating positive change?
Well, what's so fascinating here is how much power individuals actually have when they come together and demand change.
Yeah.
We see this with movements like the fight for $15.
Right.
It started as this grassroots effort by fast food workers demanding a living wage, and it has spread across the country.
Yeah.
And it really highlights the power of collective action and solidarity.
Yeah.
And it's led to actual increases in the minimum wage in several cities and states.
That's so inspiring.
Yeah.
It shows that change is possible when people organize and refuse to accept the system as it is.
Absolutely.
But movements like that often focus on a single issue.
Yeah.
How do we address these broader interconnected challenges that contribute to poverty?
That's a great point.
It feels like we need solutions that are as complex as the problem itself.
You're absolutely right. We need multifaceted solutions. And, one area that's gaining a lot of attention is this concept of a guaranteed basic income.
Okay.
Have you heard of this?
I have heard of it.
It's a system where everyone receives a regular payment from the government.
Okay.
No matter their job status.
Okay.
Think of it as a safety net.
Right.
To prevent people from falling into poverty.
Okay.
Now, it might sound radical.
Yeah.
But pilot programs around the world have shown some really promising results.
Okay.
They've actually found that a guaranteed basic income can reduce poverty.
Wow.
Improve health, and even boost entrepreneurship.
That is radical. But if it's backed by evidence and showing positive outcomes, it's definitely something worth exploring further.
Absolutely.
It seems like we need to be open to these new and innovative ideas if we're going to really make a dent in this problem.
Exactly. We have to be willing to think outside the box, but we also need to be realistic about the timeline for change,
Right.
These systemic issues have been developing for decades, so it's going to take time and sustained effort to create lasting change.
That's a good point. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
So while we're working towards these bigger systemic shifts, what can we do as individuals to make a difference in our own communities?
That's a great question.
We've talked about supporting organizations like the National Coalition for the Homeless and the Children's Defense Fund. But are there other things we can do on a daily basis to help shift the narrative around poverty?
One of the most impactful things we can do is actually quite simple.
Okay.
Change the way we talk about poverty.
Okay.
We often hear phrases like the poor or those people, which creates the sense of separation and judgment. Instead, we need to use language that emphasizes our shared humanity.
I see what you mean. So instead of saying the homeless, we'd say people experiencing homelessness.
Exactly.
It's a subtle shift, but it feels much more respectful. And acknowledges that anyone could find themselves in that situation.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that poverty is not a character flaw, it's a circumstance.
Right.
And by shifting our language, we can start to challenge those harmful stereotypes that perpetuate poverty.
It's about creating a culture of empathy and understanding. Which can lead to more compassionate action.
Absolutely.
So besides being mindful of our language, what are some tangible actions we can take to help people in our communities who are struggling?
There are so many ways to make a difference, even small ones.
Yeah.
Volunteering your time at a local food bank or shelter, donating to organizations that provide essential services, or simply offering a helping hand to someone in need.
Sometimes it's easy to get caught up in the big picture.
Yeah.
And forget about the impact we can have on an individual level.
You're right. And remember, even the smallest act of kindness can mean the world to someone who is feeling invisible or forgotten. A smile, a kind word, a listening ear.
Yeah.
Those are all valuable and can truly brighten someone's day.
It's about restoring dignity and hope and reminding people that they matter. What a powerful message.
It is, and it's something we all have the power to do.
Yeah.
We all have something to offer, whether it's time, skills, resources, or simply a willingness to listen and learn.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to challenge our listeners to find one small way this week to make a difference in the fight against poverty in their own communities.
Love that.
It doesn't have to be a grand gesture. Even a small act of kindness can have a ripple effect.
I love that challenge. And I'd add, share your actions on social media, tag us, use a specific hashtag. Let's create a wave of awareness and inspire others to get involved.
It's amazing how social media can be used for good to amplify these individual actions.
It is.
And create a sense of collective movement.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about grassroots efforts, individual actions, and even some potentially radical policy shifts.
Hmm.
Are there other approaches or strategies that we haven't touched on yet?
There are so many ways to tackle these issues.
Right.
We could talk about them for hours, but one area that often gets overlooked
Like,
is the power of financial choices. A lot of people don't realize that they can actually align their investments with their values through something called impact investing.
I've heard that term, but I'll admit I don't fully understand it.
Yeah.
What exactly is impact investing?
It's basically investing in companies and organizations that are working to create positive social or environmental change.
Okay.
It's not just about maximizing financial returns. It's about using your money to support businesses that are committed to fair labor practices, environmental sustainability, or other causes you care about.
So you're making money and making a difference at the same time.
Exactly.
What's not to love about that?
Right.
Where can our listeners go to learn more about impact investing?
Yeah.
It sounds like it could be a really powerful tool for change.
There are some fantastic online resources out there, like the Global Impact Investing Network,
Okay.
that provide information and guidance on how to get started.
Okay.
And remember, even small investments can have a big impact when pooled together.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people feel like they need to be wealthy
Yeah.
to make a difference through investing.
Right.
But that's not necessarily true.
You're so right. It's about being intentional with your financial choices, regardless of how much money you have.
So impact investing is one way to align our financial choices with our values. Are there other everyday decisions we can make that can contribute to a more just and equitable society?
Absolutely. Think about the businesses you support.
Okay.
Are they paying their employees a living wage?
Okay.
Are they committed to ethical sourcing practices? These are all things to consider when
Yeah.
making purchasing decisions.
Mm.
It's about being a mindful consumer and recognizing that our choices have power.
It's like voting with your dollars,
Yeah.
supporting businesses that are aligned with your values, and boycotting those that aren't.
I love that
It
concept.
feels empowering to know that we can make a difference through our everyday choices.
That's the beauty of it. Every decision we make, no matter how small, has the potential to contribute to a more just and compassionate world.
I think that's a great note to end on.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground in this episode, and I hope our listeners are feeling inspired to take action, both big and small.
I second that there's so much we can do individually and collectively
Right.
to address these complex issues of poverty. It's a journey, not a destination.
Right.
And we all have a role to play.
So we spent the last two parts of this deep dive really getting into the complexities of poverty,
Yeah.
going beyond those surface level explanations to try to uncover the systemic issues that keep people trapped in this cycle.
Absolutely.
But, knowledge without action is just potential.
It is.
So for this final part, let's focus on what we can do with all this information, what resources and strategies are out there to really equip us as change makers in this fight.
It's great to be back to wrap up this important conversation. If you're feeling fired up and ready to take action, the first step is always education. Remember, knowledge is power.
Right.
And there are some amazing resources out there to help you dive deeper into these issues.
Yes. I know a lot of our listeners are lifelong learners,
Yeah.
always eager to expand their understanding. So where would you recommend people go to really get informed about the nuances of poverty and potential solutions?
One resource I can't recommend enough is actually a program that I'm familiar with that focuses on financial well-being for vulnerable populations.
Okay.
And they offer this fantastic training that really gets into the nitty-gritty of the systemic barriers we've been talking about.
That sounds incredibly valuable, especially for those who want to understand the practical, the on-the-ground realities. And I know some of our listeners are professionals working in fields where they see these issues firsthand. Is this training accessible to everyone?
Absolutely. It's designed for anyone who wants to learn more, whether you're a social worker, an educator, a healthcare provider, or just a concerned citizen.
Fantastic. So it's really about empowering individuals to become more effective advocates and allies in this fight.
Exactly. But it's not just about individual learning. It's about collective action, too.
Right.
And that's where connecting with organizations that are doing this amazing work on the ground is so crucial.
Right.
I'm sure a lot of our listeners are familiar with the National Coalition for the Homeless, for example.
It's worse, yeah.
They are a leading voice in advocating for the rights of people experiencing homelessness, and they offer a wealth of information and resources on their website.
That's a great reminder that, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are already organizations out there doing incredible work, and we can learn from their expertise and experience.
Absolutely.
And while we're talking about organizations making a difference, I also want to mention the Children's Defense Fund.
Yeah.
They focus on ensuring that all children have access to the resources they need to thrive, regardless of their background.
That's so crucial because, as we discussed, poverty has such a disproportionate impact on children.
Yeah.
So investing in organizations like the Children's Defense Fund it's really an investment in a better future for all of us.
It all comes back to that interconnectedness we've been talking about, right?
Right.
The well-being of children is so directly tied to the well-being of our communities and ultimately our nation as a whole.
Exactly.
But supporting these organizations can sometimes feel like a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
Are there other ways that we can make a more tangible impact, particularly when it comes to our own finances?
This is where things get really interesting because we can actually align our financial choices with our values
Right.
through impact investing.
You brought this up earlier, and I'm so glad we're circling back to it. For those who might have missed it, can you quickly explain what impact investing is all about?
So impact investing is basically a way to invest in companies and organizations that are actively working to create positive social or environmental change. You're not just looking for financial returns. You're choosing to support businesses that are committed to things like fair labor practices, environmental sustainability, or other causes that you care about.
So you're essentially using your money as a force for good, which I love that idea.
Yeah.
But I think there's this misconception out there that you need to be wealthy to make a difference through impact investing. Is that true?
Not at all. It's about being intentional with your financial choices.
Yeah.
No matter how much you have to invest, every dollar can be a vote for the kind of world you want to see.
And that brings us right back to the power of everyday choices. Right?
It does.
It's not just about, the big investments. It's about the small decisions that we make every single day.
Exactly. Supporting local businesses that pay a living wage, choosing products from companies that prioritize ethical sourcing, even just being aware of your consumption habits. All these things matter.
It's about being a mindful consumer, a mindful citizen, and recognizing that our choices, both big and small, have ripple effects. As we wrap up this deep dive, I think the message I want our listeners to take away is this. Change starts with awareness.
Yeah,
But it doesn't end there. It requires action.
it does.
And that action can take many forms.
Absolutely.
It's about finding what resonates with you, what sparks your passion, and using your unique skills and resources to make a difference. We've given you a lot of food for thought, and I encourage you to explore these resources further. Learn more, connect with others, and get involved in whatever way feels right for you.
And remember, you don't have to do it alone. Find your community, build your network of support, and let's create a movement for change, one step at a time.
Beautifully said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the high cost of being poor. We hope you found this journey insightful and inspiring. And remember, even the smallest actions can create big change. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep fighting for a better future for all.